Hello, this is KA7QVE. Just wanted to share a little bit of my experience with the Rockmite 51, the Chinese version here. And anyways, one of the first things I did is putting it together. I don't know if you can see very good, but this is a header. You can buy them and cut them to length. I notched it and then bent the middle pin over 90 degrees. I notched the plastic a little so it would be flush, and then soldered that pin to ground right there. And you got to make sure you don't get the solder sticking too far out to the edge or it'll catch in the case. But the other thing is and this is what the crystal looks like. I soldered the crystal. I bent the middle pin and soldered it to the case, the bottom of the case, and then the two side pins, bent them 90 degrees and connected them. A little hard for me to get very dexterous here to show you what I did, but that's basically how I did these little crystals. And so I'm going to buy a bunch more so I can change frequencies. But anyway, then on Third Planet from the Sun, or KC90N website, recommended replacing these, which I did. So I don't know if you'd have to, but I went ahead and bought the new T37-2 Amidon. I bought the Amidon cores. He suggested to replace these capacitors here in the final. There's this one. I couldn't find them all in the Mylar or whichever it is, these capacitors in all the same. So I replaced them all with a higher voltage value, because in the final you have more voltage there. His suggestion was that the factory originals were only rated for 50 volts, and sometimes you had more voltage than that in the final. So anyway, that's how I did the crystals. I'm going to talk about this little mixer chip, I guess. This little tiny guy here, that thing was a pain in the tail. It's about like 2 rice seeds. What I did on mine is I took an instrument and held it in place, and I took a hot glue gun and very gently with just tiny daub of glue on this end of the chip and on that, and glued it in place and let the glue harden. Made sure I got all the pins lined up good, and then I took a very fine tipped I think I have a 25-watt Weller with the finest tip I could buy for it, and soldered them in, and they went excellent with it in place. And then I just took in very gently with my thumbnail, peeled the hot glue back off so you can't see that there's any hot glue there. But anyway, winding these toroids was not exactly a party. I discovered that the edges, the internal edges on this, and somewhat to the outside edges of these T3743s, a very sharp edge. And what happened, my first set of winds that I went, unfortunately they had enough wire, but it was cutting the insulation off of this wire. And so what I did is I took varathane and put about dried three coats onto these before I wound them, so they were nice and slick and shiny and smooth. I coated these with varathane. I didn't have to, but they're nice and firm. But I coated them with varathane after I wound them, and so and I kind of hot glued stuff in place so it couldn't move around. But anyway, that's what I did there. And so, anyways. I got them done all right, but I went and found what was called the S-Rockmite, and it's a completely different transmitter. It has a lot of similarities, but the final amplifier section is built identical to the 51, and I used the S-Rockmite instructions. There was some discrepancy as to whether the instructions on the other site showed pictures of 5 turns, but the instructions said 6. This one, the set of instructions said 6. These are done by filler. They're not twisted, so they're done in a bifiller thing, and there's 6 turns. This is how I did mine. I got plenty of power out of the unit. In fact, I got too much. It burned out the final the first time around. I was putting out about 10-12 watts. This is just the two T37-2s. And that was pretty standard. And this one was a little odd to me. I think mine overlapped or something, because it was kind of weird that the winding, if you snip this right here and rolled that out flat, the winding is going around, well, let's see, this way, all the way around, and then you get to here and this goes the other way, which puts this winding out of phase. Not sure what the thinking is there. I guess it works. That's because that's how I did it. So these were the most clear instructions. These kind of overlap starting here, so I had a little bit of overlap, but it looked more like this to a degree. My camera just not wanting to focus on white paper too good right at the moment. But anyway, that's how I did mine. So anyways, it all seemed to be pretty good. I replaced this transistor with one that had more wattage capability, a little bit higher voltage rating, but it had a little less gain on it. So that might be why I'm a little less power now, but I had to reduce the voltage to this transmitter by building myself a voltage regulator. I built this one. I've got some coming in the mail, but I just put an LM317 and just regulated from the battery from 12 volts down to, I dropped it to about 10.2, so I'm a couple 2.5 volts lower, and that put the power in more of an acceptable range. And another thing I noticed is when you plug your key in, what I had to do, there was no instructions anywhere, but what I discovered is that if you plug your key in, and then on my J38 key, if you lock the key in the on position and then apply power to the board with the key engaged, it comes up in the transmit mode. I don't like that, but that's what happens. You hold the key closed and apply power to it, and then hurry and undo it. Well, what that does is that then puts this board in the single key mode. I never could have been able to get the paddle key mode to work, which I don't know that I was going to use with this anyway, and I'm still playing with the software. There's quite a bit of reading to do to get that to work. I've got it on the computer. It looks like I have it right. I have not hooked it to the board and messed around with it yet. Just been playing with a transmitter. So anyways, I'll hook this up here in a minute and at least just show you kind of what I've got going. I'll hook it to a Bluetooth speaker. I won't transmit, but I'll let you at least hear it working. One thing I forgot to show you, if I can get the camera to decide it wants to work and focus again. Camera is not focusing worth a darn. Samsung for you. Anyways, there we go, got it to work. This is how I just got a little tool out of my refrigeration stuff. It was just a key with a bent thing. You could make that out of anything. I zip tied these toroids to this little deal like this, and then wound them with this screwed to the table, and then just cut the zip tie when I was done with them. And that little tool made all the difference in the world, so I didn't have to sit and hold the thing and try to do it. And so I was able to wind it that way. And the other thing, when I got the parts, I put all the capacitors and transistors, and I just labeled everything, counted them, and put them in tape like this. And then as I needed them, I just pulled them out of the tape, but they were already labeled. But I took and tested most of the components. I didn't have a tester that worked that great with these capacitors, but all the diodes and stuff I checked pretty much but I did them in tape like this. It just saved me a lot of hassle. So anyways, I've got a Bluetooth speaker hooked up. The side tone about kills my speaker. For some reason, the side tone on the headphones, it's okay. But anyways, so I've got my J38 key. I've got the tune bar stuck in, so when I plug it in, and I've got it hooked up to the SWR meter, I guess I ought to see if I've got that set on power, put that on peak, and 20 watts thing there. And so as I reach down and I've got that key on there, I plug it in, and so it goes into the transmit mode there. So once I've done that, it's and there's nobody on this frequency right at the moment, but it sounds horrible on the speaker. The side tone, it sounds okay in the headphones, but that is a gripe that most people have, and I tend to agree with them. So when I have it hooked to that speaker, it sounds pretty tough. So anyways, so it's a lot of fun. Anyways, if I turn on my other ham radio in the room, the tone going out over the air sounds really quite good. So anyway, there you have it. That's what I've got thus far. May do some other testing and stuff later with the computer and